Good evening and welcome to Scotland at 7. My name is Duncan. Ukraine update, day 204. The major city of Kryvyi struggled to contain damage to its water system from Russian missile attacks. The largest city in central Ukraine, with an estimated pre-war population of 650,000, was targeted by 8 cruise missiles hitting the Karachnov Reservoir Dam. Dmytro Kuleba, Ukraine's foreign minister, called the attack on the Kryvyi hydraulic structures a war crime and an act of terror. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky was involved in a traffic accident in Kyiv last night, but he is not seriously hurt, his spokesperson said in a Facebook post early this morning. Rail services will resume between Kharkiv and Balaklia and Kharkiv Oblast on Thursday. Workers have already repaired bridges and dozens of damaged trucks after Balaklia was liberated on 8 September. Ukraine has continued to consolidate control of the newly liberated Kharkiv region, the UK Minister of Defence says in its latest briefing. The update said some Russian forces appeared to have fled from Ukrainian troops advanced in apparent panic, leaving behind key equipment. Ukraine's defense minister found what its officials believed to be torture chambers used by Russian troops to hold Ukrainian prisoners in the city of Balaklia. Ukraine's State Border Guards Service rescued 5 teenagers who had been locked in a basement for 7 days by Russian troops in the recent liberated city Kupiansk in Kharkiv region. Russian President Vladimir Putin has arrived in Samarkand in Uzbekistan, where he is later expected to meet China Xi Jinping. The President of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, arrived in Kyiv Thursday morning. She has tweeted that she will be meeting Zelensky and Ukrainian's Prime Minister Denis Shmyhal. German's Economy Minister Robert Habeck said on Thursday that according to Kyiv's own estimates, Ukraine needs 350 billion euros for reconstruction. The prospects for peace in Ukraine are currently minimal, the UN Secretary General said on Wednesday after a phone conversation with Putin. Kremlin sources are now working to clear Putin of any responsibly of the defeat, instead blaming the loss of almost all the occupied Kharkiv Oblast on under-informed military advisors. According to the US-based think tank Institute of the Study of War, Germany has delivered 4 more Gepard anti-craft guns and 65 refrigerators to Ukraine. Bank holiday arrangements for the Queen's funeral. The Scottish Government has issued guidance for the bank holiday on Monday, 19 September, to mark the funeral of the Queen. Schools have been advised to close. The advice also applies to other education settings that would normally be closed on a bank holiday. Most local authority-run early learning and childcare (ELC) services are expected to close. Health board have been given guidance to support their planning for the holiday, which underlines the importance of essential healthcare services continuing. This includes pre-planned treatment and winter vaccination programs. Patients should visit their local NHS board website for further information. More public transport services are currently expected to run as normal. Passengers should contact operators for information. Not anyone is entitled to paid leave. Not everyone is entitled to paid leave on bank holidays. If in doubt, people are advised to check the position with their employer. Jeffrey Epstein victims condemn Prince Andrew's return to public life. Since the death of the Queen last Thursday, Prince Andrew has returned to the public sphere. The Duke of York's prominence at events marking the death of his mother, such as the progress of her coffin through Edinburgh and London this week, might be understandable, but just months ago, amidst fallout from his long and controversial association with the convicted sex trafficker Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell, any public appearances at all would have seemed entirely unlikely. Now, eighth in line to the throne, Andrew was stripped of his military patronages and uses the HRH title after he paid a financial settlement to Virginia Gillen, who had accused him of sexual assault. The attorneys who represented Epstein victims and other advocates for the sex crime victims, Andrew's sudden reappearance has seemed jarring. Some have said it could prove triggering to Epstein survivors, even if they never encountered Andrew. Mariam Wang, who represented more than a dozen Epstein survivors, said it was beyond shameful to see Andrew being granted any form of state-sponsored honor or privilege, given his past affiliation to Jeffrey Epstein. Epstein pleaded guilty to associations of a minor for prostitution in 2008. Andrew, who continued to associate with the New York financier long after the guilt plea, vehemently denied a claim that he had sex with an Epstein accuser when the girl was a teen. Wang continued, "The brave woman who came forward to hold Epstein, Maxwell, and others to account deserve better. His past conduct and judgment make clear that he is not worth of any state-sponsored privilege, including reaping the benefits of being a royal." Scrutiny over the prince's links to Epstein reached new heights early this year. In January, as a lawsuit brought against the prince by Virginia Gale, Jeffrey continued, the Queen stripped Andrew of his military affiliation to royal patronage. Geoffrey has claimed that Epstein and his accomplice Maxwell coerced into sexual encounters with Andrew. The prince strongly denies all wrongdoing. But in light of the lawsuit, Buckingham Palace also announced that Andrew would no longer use his Royal Highness honorific in any official capacity. In February, Geoffrey agreed to a multi-million-dollar settlement. Attorneys for the prince said that he regrets his association with Epstein. Observers said it was unlikely Andrew would return to public life. Mark Stevens, a media lawyer, said Prince was reputationally toast and will never appear on a royal balcony ever again, and has effectively been ambushed from polite society and the royal family. But that was before the death of the Queen. Kwasi Kwarteng to deliver emergency mini-budget on 23rd September. Kwasi Kwarteng, will deliver his emergency mini budget to bring a winter tax cut for millions of people and set out more details on energy support next Friday, according to reports. Although normal politics has been paralyzed by the death of the Queen, the Chancellor and his team have been putting the final touches to the budget with the aim of announcing it once in the official mourning period ends. With Liz Truss expected to be the UN General Assembly in New York next week, the government also planning to set out its priorities for the NHS, there is limited time available for a physical event. In the mini budget, the government is expected to confirm plans to reverse the recent rise in national insurance, even though it benefits higher earners the most, handing back about £1,800 a year to top earners, while the lowest earner gets about £7 a year. Truss has already said she would ditch a planned rise in corporation tax. Her team has also spoken to business groups about changes to business rates and cuts to VAT to help with the energy crisis, as well as a long-term review of these taxes. Senior MPs believe Mr. Kwarteng could make a rabbit out of the hat. Announcement of the cost of living with speculation. This could include bringing forward by a year the pledge made by Rishi Sunak as Chancellor to cut income tax by 1% from 2024. The government is expected to outline further details of Liz Truss' £100 billion plus emergency bailout to help households with energy bills following criticism that she hadn't said how the package would be funded. The Prime Minister had been under pressure from Tory MPs to set out her plans before the Commons broke up for the party conferences. It means Parliament will sit for an extra day before the Labour conference begins on Saturday in Liverpool, with the recess expected to be cut by 1 week so that MPs return before the middle of October. UK government planning to scrap caps on bankers' bonuses. Chancellor Kwasi Kwarteng is reportedly planning to scrap caps on bankers' bonuses in controversially timed move to attract more talent to the City of London. A source close to Mr. Kwarteng confirmed the Chancellor was considering lifting the cap, but emphasizes that no decision had been taken. Ministers are known to be concerned that the city could lose out to other financial centers. The source noted that Paris was offering 30% income tax rate to attract investment banking professionals. They said the Chancellor believed that UK tax revenues could be boosted if the city could attract more banking talent. According to the Financial Times, Mr. Kwarteng wants to abolish rules imposed after the 2008 financial crash that capped bonuses at twice an employee's salary. It is part of what he calls Big Bang 2.0, a post-Brexit deregulation drive to make the city more competitive. But the idea is already being widely questioned amidst predictions of a backlash at a time when many families are struggling with the cost of living. Professor Susan Michi, the director of the Center for Behavior Change and a scientific advisor to the government, tweeted 0.3% of the British electorate voted for Truss as Prime Minister. Worth remembering when evaluating her cabinet's policy is the trailed scrapping of anti-obesity measures and lifting the cap on bankers' bonuses which is already 2 times their salaries, whilst asking others for wage restraint. UK government will continue unilaterally suspending Northern Ireland border checks. The UK government has made a unilateral decision to continue suspending border checks on farm produce and other goods entering Northern Ireland from UK mainland, a move likely to antagonize the EU but not provoke further action. London notified Brussels of its decision today in its formal response to 7 lawsuits brought by the EU over the alleged failure of the UK to comply with the Northern Ireland Protocol. The UK also requested that a full specialised committee on EU's programmes, the official forum for Brexit implementation issues, take place next week to discuss the ongoing exclusion of the UK from the flagship Horizon Europe Science Funds. This could be read as a sign that further action will be announced next week, with the potential for Article 16 to be triggered, or an announcement that the UK is ready formally that the UK is ready formally to re-enter talks. A European Commission spokesman said it needed time to consider the response. We have received a reply from the UK. We will now analyse and reply, deciding on the next steps, he said. Sources say it is more likely to centre on discussions about the UK's continued exclusion from the EU flagship Horizon Europe Science Research Fund. EU and Irish leaders hope the chance for the rift to be healed will be seized before a potential meeting between Liz Truss and President Biden next week. Downing Street is not making any statement on the matters as political business remains in abeyance during the 10-day period of mourning for the Queen. The UK government believes the continuation of the grace period for checks on goods will create the space needed for solutions to be protracted row with Brussels. It will mean farm produce, including sausages, ready meals, and dairy products from UK, can continue to be delivered to shops in Northern Ireland without physical checks that they comply with EU standards. The UK argues that a necessary move to preserve business stability as well as fulfill a promise to the unionist political parties which object to the protocol. Brussels is not expected to respond until it has fully assessed the UK's response. The EU has been bracing itself for another bracing battle with the UK over the Northern Ireland Protocol after Truss's decision in June to table a bill for new law that would enable the UK to scrap part of the protocol completely, which legal experts say would remain breaking international law. European Parliament says Hungary is no longer a full democracy. Hungary can no longer be considered a full democracy, the European Parliament has said in a powerful symbolic vote against Viktor Orban's government. In a resolution backed by 81% of MEPs present to vote, the parliament stated that Hungary had become a hybrid regime of electoral autocracy, citing a breakdown in democracy. Fundamental rights and rule of law. Of the 534 MEPs present for the votes in Strasbourg, 433 voted in favor, 123 against, and 28 abstained. While the vote has no practical effect, it heightens pressure on EU authorities in Brussels not to disperse billions of EU cash to Hungary that is being withheld over concerns about corruption. Hungary is battling to persuade European Commission to release 4.64 billion euros in COVID recovery funds frozen for more than a year. Budapest is also trying to stave off a separate legal procedure that could lead to deductions from 24.3 billion euros of cohesion funds, money for infrastructure and economic development. The European Commission is expected to propose cutting 70% of Hungary's cohesion funds on Sunday, but is also likely to open doors to a compromise. In a recent international paper, Commission officials suggest there was a very significant risk over Hungary's management of EU funds, citing breaching in public interest rules and an unusual high number of contracts awarded to a single bidder. A red flag for transparency watchers. The paper, which has been removed from the Commission's website, suggests a 70% cut in funds as proportionate to the risk. Hungary will be given until mid-November to get its house in order. After a charm offensive in Brussels, Hungary's government is expected next week to propose a raft of laws to combat corruption. Critics fear the Commission is ready to accept cosmetic changes to defuse the conflicts over EU funds. The large majority of the vote was aided by Orban's decision in 2021 to quit the political family of EU's centre-right, the European People's Party, EPP. The EPP had previously offered Hungary's Fidesz party some protection from critical votes, but Orban's withdrew party before it was pushed out by centre-right MEPs. The vote comes almost exactly 4 years after MEPs voted to trigger disciplinary action against Hungary, a decision that ultimately lies in the hands of the 26 EU member states, who have mostly shown little appetite for conflict with Budapest. Two teenage sisters raped and murdered in Uttar Pradesh in India. Two sisters in Uttar Pradesh have been found raped, murdered, and hanging from a tree in the latest incident of sexual violence to shock India. The bodies of the girls aged 15 and 17 were found suspended from a tree by their shawls near their home in Lakhimpur district on Wednesday afternoon. They belong to the Dalit caste, the lowest in India's hierarchical and discriminatory Hindu caste system, which used to deem Dalits as untouchable. Police said the post-mortem examination confirmed both sisters were raped after being dragged into a sugarcane field and then strangled to death before being hanged from the tree to make their deaths look like suicide. 6 men, including a neighbor of the family, have been arrested and charged with crimes including rape, murder, and helping to abet and cover up the murder. According to the police, the men, who were all from the same village, had been known to the girls, and their pair had gone with them willingly on Wednesday afternoon. The mother of the 2 girls, disputed this account and said two of the men had turned up at the house on Wednesday afternoon and forcibly taken away her daughters on scooters. I tried to stop them and ran behind them, but they beat me up and left. I shouted and I ran back to seek help from the villagers, she told local media. The police handed their bodies back to the family, but they refused to carry out the cremation until the government promised a fast-track trial and compensation. The incident triggered local protest and criticism of the ruling government of Uttar Pradesh, led by hardline Hindu nationalist monk Yogi Adityanath, who has been accused of not doing enough to protect women from rape and sexual violence, particularly those from poor and lower caste backgrounds. In 2020, there was a mass outcry after a Dalit girl was raped and murdered in Hathras, another district in Uttar Pradesh. Brajesh Pathak, the deputy chief minister of Uttar Pradesh, said the perpetrators would face such an action that the souls of the coming generations will also shiver. Justice will be given. The incident highlighted the ongoing scandal of rape and violence against women in India, which was found to be the most dangerous country to be a woman in 2018 poll by the Reuters Foundation. Trump's ex-chief of staff, Mark Meadows, complies with January 6 subpoena. CNN have reported that former White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows, who served under the Donald Trump, has complied with a subpoena from the Justice Department investigation into the events surrounding the January 6th attack on the Capitol. That makes him the highest-ranking Trump officials known to have responded to a subpoena in the federal investigation. The attack on the Capitol by Trump supporters led to several deaths, injured police officers, and delayed certification of Joe Biden's victory over Trump in 2020 election. Meadows provided the same material he gave to the House January 6 committee, satisfying the obligation of the subpoena, according to CNN. Meadows initially cooperated with the January 6 committee in 2021, but later sued over the subpoenas. The U.S. House of Representatives earlier this year voted to refer Meadows to the Justice Department for contempt of Congress. The department declined to charge him. Well, that is it for this evening. Before I go, I just want to remind you that at Broadcasting Scotland, we depend on the generosity of our supporters. So to everyone who has donated and to everyone who has signed up to make a regular monthly payment, thank you very much. Our programs will always be free to view. However, if you can afford £5 a month, please consider becoming a Broadcasting Scotland supporter. We have set ourselves a target of adding 10,000 new subscribers to enable us employ staff and to make more programs. Good night and thank you for watching.